I'm the coordinator of the DigiTeL Pro initiative, and we're going to look into the course program that we are going to develop, for which is the launch today. And I just want to sketch a bit of the context in which we are developing this by a short presentation. A moment. Can you see this? Yeah. Okay. So the DigiTeL Pro initiative was set up in relation to the COVID crisis by call by the European Commission. I have a lot of text in front of me, which is disturbing. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So and it is building on some research that has been done last year on the COVID crisis and what needs to be done. Especially on for educational institutions. So first of all, we had some figures from the European Commission last year that at the beginning of the first lockdown, 95% of the universities had to go immediately into the emergency remote teaching, and then hoped after the summer break that they could start again by the campus-based education, but that seemed to be impossible. First, by having small groups only on campus, in combination with some students remote, and then the second lockdown happened, and then everyone needed to go back in the distance education, remote education. Teaching staff was very much felt that they were extremely challenged by this and needed to adapt to the situation the best way they could do, and it was also very much appreciated by the students at some point. But it is also clear that we can't continue in the format in a way of emergency remote teaching, and have to take the next steps there, especially as students were also starting to complain about the new way of teaching at that point, and that became clear when students were indicating, and it was in the news, becoming depressed, or even students protesting against online education. This is very much against what we are promoting. EDTU is the European Association of Leading Universities in Online Open and Flexible Higher Education. And this is, of course, not the publicity we are looking for. This is purely due to the emergency remote teaching that was taking place, although there is so much research and so much to share on good practices in organizing and bringing quality online education. On the other hand, we have to put it into perspective, of course. What would have been what could we have done if there was a lockdown and there wasn't online education? That was really the only way to continue the education for all the students. And so on the one hand, we have to embrace online education, but we have to go from improvisation to really professional online education, and work on further digital literacy and educate the educators. So highest priority is with the further education of educators, on which this program DigiTeL Pro is also based. We need to build on the expertise and experience that is already there for decades, actually, especially also within the open universities in Europe. Decades of expertise and experience. We need to work methodologically designed education. We need to work with well-considered digital didactics, which are preferably research-based. Create interaction, debate, and dialogue by synchronous but also asynchronous ways of teaching. Use activating teaching by engaging students in, for example, knowledge video clips, serious gaming, and so on. And we have to extend and enrich the programs also by virtual mobility, which is very much promoted also by the current and running European programs. Most and for all, we should not copy on-campus education, what has been done by these emergency remote teaching practices. What is now, first of all, needed is that we share expertise. There is a wealth on research in this field. We have to face the challenges of digitalization before we were able to say there is no need, there is no urgency. It's all optional to go digital. But we really have to face the challenges now of digitalization, like the privacy issues and the technical requirements, but also the professional development of educators that comes with this. And start a discussion also within the institution on how to work with companies together also in delivering supporting systems. But overall, it is a new mindset needed at institutional level, in which also the full staff is involved in the transformation to digital education. The next step, therefore, for the institutions is that every educational institution needs to reconsider its own educational model. So now developing a pathway, a roadmap to offering also professional digital education. Most urgently, educate the educators in the use of digital didactics, which is, of course, we are focusing on with this Digital Pro program. And that educators need to realize that they also have to shift that task more from provider also to developer, to design new courses and curricula by using online modes of teaching, and continuously evaluate and innovate your education by measuring and including research on your new developments to further optimize the new models of teaching. In Digital Pro, we are bringing together experts from universities that are well known for their research and innovation in digital education. And these are coming from various universities in European-wide. First of all, we work with the KU Leuven on synchronous hybrid education, with TU Delft on blended education, and with the WOC of Catalonia and the OUNL and Untitled on online education, and also further with the Open University of the Netherlands, and FIET, the French network of universities, also to support the testing and implementation at the conventional universities. What we now aim to achieve a digital course program is to set up a professional development program, the CPD course, for educators on synchronous hybrid, blended and online teaching. We also, in parallel to this, we optimize the models and guidelines and pedagogies by research and study and bringing studies together, doing meta research on this. And we want to accelerate the digital transformation of education systems European-wide as a general objective. The focus, and that is the working process within Digital Pro, is to focus on synchronous hybrid learning by the KU Leuven, which is based on settings that have in common that they are both on-site or here students, and remote or there students that are simultaneously included. We have a focus on blended learning, where the course that is based on course design with a deliberate combination of online and offline learning activities by TU Delft, and online and distance learning that is based on a course design with a continuous physical separation between the teacher and the learner. As an overall approach on all these three levels, three formats, we include also input by Dublin City University on student readiness for digital learning. And in all, we present also recommendations at institutional and national European policy level. This all will be presented this afternoon, starting in a minute with Mark Brown from DCU on student readiness, followed by Marieke Pieters from the KU Leuven on synchronous hybrid education. And then Martijn Ouwehand from TU Delft and colleagues will present blended education. And then we have a presentation by the WOC of Catalonia by Albert Sangra on online distance education. And then we have the breakout sessions in which each of you can select one of the three course programs. So you can imagine the planning is that we have on each of the three courses that make the full program, each of the three courses will have about 6-7 sessions next year. And you can learn more about that not only here in the plenary presentations, but then also in the breakout sessions where you have more one-on-one discussion with the course leaders. And then we come back for closing and final conclusions. So without further ado, I think we go immediately to the overarching topic of student readiness and digital education. And I would like to give the floor to Mark Brown from TCU in Dublin.
Thanks very much, George. If you could just stop sharing the screen and I will load up my slides. Thank you. Folks, I'm going to talk quite quickly because I only got about 15 minutes or so. So I've given you a link to the slides that you can have a look at in your own time. A lot of eye candy here. But what's really important about the start of this launch event today is that we are starting with the learner. And I think that's more than symbolic. I would love it if I was the learner actually speaking. I'm going to be talking, shall we say, largely on behalf of learners, but it's a very important philosophical as well as quite practical point in learning design, as you'll hear shortly. George has already talked about our partners in this exciting project, so I won't dwell any further. There are three things that I want to cover. I'm going to spend most of the time on the first one and give you an insight into this course that we've developed to help prepare readiness for online learning, but then retrospect back into the literature because part of this project also involves learning lessons from the literature, and then finish very briefly on just another call for the importance of the student voice in learning. So before I get into that first section, sharing a little bit about a course that our team has developed, let's just reflect back for a minute. In Ireland and Dublin, it all began on Friday, the 13th of March. Truthfully, I think it was Thursday, the 12th, but it looks better if you say Friday, often known in some cultures as Black Friday. And of course, life changed forever in many respects. We haven't gone back yet. And now there are millions, if not billions of learners that have been introduced to, well, not maybe online learning, but emergency remote teaching. And this project is all about a response to that and also building on the lessons. At DCU, the university, Dublin City University that I'm located, we have some advantages in the pivot to online because we have a tradition of online distance education going back over 35 years. But it was only a small advantage. We did nonetheless have a long history and research on student success and readiness in online environments. And this is a project that was nationally funded a few years ago. And we produced things like this, an online tool, a calculator because we know that time is a factor for learners. It helps to calculate how much time you have to study. And then in another life, I'm originally from New Zealand, and I should have pointed out this is a team presentation here with my colleagues Elaine and Mairead. But when I was in New Zealand, I was involved in a project where we looked at first-time online learners, and we used video diaries to get them to present their experience in their own words. So I've just given you that preamble to say that this hasn't come from nowhere. There's actually been quite a lot of literature that has informed what I'm about to describe now by the course that we developed back in 2020. This was actually before the project was funded, but it was built into the project deliverables and outputs. What we recognized was that with the rapid move to online learning, we put a lot of effort in supporting our staff, but our learners also needed a lot of effort. So we managed to secure some funding to develop what we call a digital edge essentials for the online learner. And in a very rapid learning design process and development, we had this launched for September last year. So just over a year ago, the first iteration. We've now had 3 iterations. And what I mean by that is facilitated iterations. It is available as self-directed as well. And this is one of the offerings to feed into the courses that you're going to hear about to come shortly. This particular course was quite well conceptualized around a number of frameworks. At the time, the European Commission had developed the life skill framework and also the UNESCO framework. I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what the course is about as I'm speaking. So let me show you a video to give you a sense of what assumption underpinned this particular course. Hopefully this will play.
Learning online requires a new set of skills to master. It is not the same as learning in a physical classroom. This interactive course gives you the edge to succeed as an online learner. It equips you with the tools and know-how to get the most out of your studies and thrive as a lifelong learner. Uniquely, this course is co-facilitated by students and includes the rich experiences of successful online learners. Make this course the first step in your online learning journey.
And I'll stop on that note and just whiz through a couple of slides that give you a sense of what's in the course from what you've already seen already. The course structure is based around four domains: ways of thinking, ways of working, tools for working, and tools for thriving. And I'll just whiz through some slides. There's much to give you a sense of what the course looks and feels like. We make use of quite a lot of polls here. The poll on this particular question comes from the first iteration and what the students said about how they were feeling about online learning. And we also asked them about what they were concerned about in terms of online learning. Consistent in the three iterations of this course so far of quite similar results. If I didn't mention it, over 10,000 learners have taken the course so far. One of the important things is around the asynchronous interactivity from students. So there have been thousands of posts from students, largely sharing their experiences. Here's the ways of thinking section. We were quite creative in the way that we came up with these various headings and the activities. We asked the learners to identify which animal would best describe them as an online learner. And that was an exciting and very interesting exercise because people came up with all sorts of animals that helped to illustrate the variety of learners that we really have. The ways of working and the sections that make up the course. Again, we've tried to use quite authentic scenarios. In this case, what would you do if you have an online lecture tomorrow morning? Most of the students were either dishonest or very honest in the way that they replied and said they'd do their homework beforehand. Moving into week 2, tools for thriving. One of the things we learned from a major national Irish study is that the tools that learners use, actually they identified 600 different electronic digital tools for their learning, whereas the academic staff only identified about 200 of them. So this underscores the importance of hearing from learners. In the final section, tools for thriving. You can see that some of the positive feedback that we received through the course, this feedback is actually quite public. What I'm showing you here on this screen is the publicly available ranking data and the data that students post by way of feedback on the course. And overall, as I mentioned, 10,000 learners, a very high completion rate for MOOCs, 50% completion rate. And at my own university that has embedded it into the learning experience, over 2,000 students have completed through to the certificate of completion. So that's gratifying. So what I'd want to do, just to wrap this first section up with an eye on the time, is just acknowledge one of the most important features of this course. You may have heard it in the video, is it was co-facilitated by other learners, and in particular our DCU ambassadors. It was also supported by the Irish Universities Association, the DCU Students' Union, and now supported as our DigiTeL project and the project partners. Very quickly, because I'm sure I've got only a few minutes left, I want to sort of show what we've developed is anchored in the literature. There has been a mountain of literature published in the COVID era. As you can see from a few of these slides, I'm sure many of you here are familiar with some of this literature. This particular publication has developed a database of COVID-related research in higher education, has over 700 publications already that have been produced. Not all of them, in fact, very few of them focus on the concept of learning readiness. And this publication, as well as this one, were published before the COVID experience. So why I've shared them here is because we knew quite a lot about student readiness well before the COVID era. So the study that we put together and looking at the literature is addressing these three questions. In particular, we want to see to what extent the learner voice really is coming through in the research. And I won't bore you here with too much of the methodological information other than say we had to search the various databases and develop extraction and inclusion criteria and the key sort of tagged words. Ultimately, actually, we only found 43 publications since the COVID crisis began that use and refer to student readiness compared to the thousands that have really been published, or if not hundreds anyway. And one standout from the 43 publications is they come from all around the world. Actually, most of them seem to be coming from developing countries rather than Europe, it would seem. Three takeaway lessons as I come to the end. There's actually very limited evidence that the concept of student readiness has informed our response to COVID. There's very little that you could argue that comes out in survey research that actually conveys the student voice. Survey research is not telling the student voice and in their own words. So this remains a really important gap in the literature that we need to fill, not just in practice through courses, but also in further research. So giving the student greater voice, coming to the last section, what I want to show here is an example of one publication. It's not in the area of student readiness, but it is a response to COVID where the students were research partners co-constructing and co-writing the article with the academics and the teachers. But this doesn't refer to student readiness. And then I want to call out a really interesting and I think imaginative project from the Irish Universities Association that crowdsourced students' views about their COVID experience through this campaign through social media, Your Education, Your Voice, Your Vision. We'll put a link to this in the chat box, but here was a different way of capturing the student voice. Conclusion, mindful of time, I guess I'm telling you nothing that's new, but actually it does seem to be new because the literature does not reflect this, that right at the start of the learning design process, voice from learners needs to be first and foremost in our thinking. And that's what we're endeavoring to do in the three courses that you're going to hear about today. Whilst we have a separate course for preparing learners, what we really want to do is have that embedded within the courses on hybrid, blended, and online delivery. So I'll stop on that note, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to begin with the learner. And now I think we're going to hear about the three different courses that we've produced as part of this project. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, the work on of DCU on student readiness will be reflected in all three of these courses. Are there at this point maybe a question or so for the audience, or a reflection at this point? There's a lot going on in the chat, but is the course availability under open license? Yeah, indeed. So the courses will be provided, let's say, live in 2022, and they will be made available as a package to universities after that first run, so that universities can use them also after 2022 within their institution. Okay, and several references I see, that's very helpful. Thanks so much, Mark. Then I suggest that we continue now with Marieke Pieters from the KU Leuven on synchronous hybrid education.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, please do.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the very good presentation. And I really think that such a course is needed in each and every country, and not only university, but school also. And because it's quite of my research interests, you said that you found out 43 student papers about students' readiness, right? Have you looked for information about the teachers' readiness? And have you researched about that topic? Because I'm quite interested about it and work about it also.
No, it's not part of the focus that we had, but I think you may find that some of my colleagues could refer to this when they are presenting what the courses we've developed in the other areas, because it's implicit that in preparing courses on blended and hybrid and online, that we have to take into account the readiness and preparation and capacity and capability of our teachers.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and there are no further hands. So let's continue now by Marieke Pieters on synchronous hybrid education.
Thank you. I'll first try to start the presentation, and I hope you can all see it now. So welcome everybody. I'll do my best, but I'm not a native speaker in English, so maybe it won't be that fluent as it was from Mark, but I will try. I'm Marieke Pieters from KU Leuven, and we are responsible for the IO2 in this project. And that's a course on synchronous hybrid teaching and learning. And in this launch meeting, I will talk you through it and share with you what the main objectives are of the course. The planned learn activities, I will tell you why we are responsible for this course, and I will share some practical information. But first, I have a question for you. If we are talking about online teaching and learning, then as I forgot the name of the person who asked the question about teacher readiness, but also for us as a teacher, there are some things different, and a camera is one of those things. So what do you think about teaching with camera on? You can answer this poll by visiting the website which is mentioned above, pollf.com/impeters. And if everything goes well, then you have the choice to answer. I'm sorry. I'm not used to working in Zoom, so I'm looking for where I can find the answers. There were 100 persons in the meeting, I guess, and we only have 47 answers.
But it will give a representative.
Yes, that's but I've lost it. I can't see the answer right now. But when we are talking about hybrid synchronous learning, then we are always happy with what we see as the advantages of it. It's flexible. It helps us in our work-life balance, as we can have the course from wherever we want and whenever we want, if it's on a recording. We are for the synchronous, so the time is fixed because we see some advantages in it, but as you can follow the lesson from wherever you want, sustainability is also an advantage. You do not have to drive everywhere, so better for the climate. It's better for the climate, I guess. But there are a lot of pitfalls. Pitfalls as student loneliness, because students do not see everyone every day again. Maybe there's a difference between online learners and the learners on campus. Do we treat them on the same way? Do we treat them differently? How does it feel for a learner? Is there a learning community? Maybe there's more dropout. If you do not come to the campus and you miss the social contacts, maybe there's a dropout. So there are a lot of pitfalls in hybrid synchronous learning, and we do not really know which pitfalls are the most important. But we think we can tackle a lot of those pitfalls. In KU Leuven, this is how we are teaching right now. We have the synchronous part and the asynchronous part. The synchronous part, the most common, is the on-campus story. So students come to the campus, follow the lesson. And we also have, and certainly now in COVID times, we have the remote lessons, the remote students who cannot come to the campus. And there we make a difference between students are visible in the lesson. So the teacher who is teaching can see the students from a distance, who are on a distance, and can have some interaction with them. Or we also have just the live stream, let's say, students who are not in the classroom are invisible to the teacher, and there is no interaction with them. Within this course, in the IO2 from DigiTeL Pro, we have the on-campus story together with the remote students who are visible, and there is an interaction. That is what we understand under hybrid synchronous learning and teaching then. So that is what we are going to talk about in our course. So, and in our course, we would like to help you to tackle the problems with that form of teaching and learning. So we hope to eliminate or reduce the disadvantages of hybrid synchronous learning, so we only keep the advantages of that system. To obtain that thing, we have three main objectives in the course. First, we will talk about what is the concept and what forms can we use. And I already told you something about it, but we can go deeper into the concept of hybrid synchronous learning and teaching. And then we are talking about how can we increase engagement of the participants, because it's very important to keep our participants engaged. And then, of course, although the pedagogical part is the most important, we are always also going to talk about the learning space and the technological needs in this course. So the planned learning activities are in 6 modules to have those three main objectives. We will have 6 modules, you can see them here. And each module will have a course in contact, 2 hours of contact, which will be high flex. It means you can be on the spot in Flanders. You can follow synchronous from a distance, from wherever you want. And also a recording will be provided. And each module will also have plus minus 3 hours of an assignment, which can be a preparation or some reflection after the course. So the moments will be high flex, but as we are talking about hybrid synchronous learning, we would like to ask the participants to follow at least half of the modules, half of the contact moments synchronous. We do not ask you to come to Flanders, although you're very welcome, but we would like to ask you to follow at least a few lessons synchronous, so you can feel the concept of hybrid synchronous learning. Now, why are we providing this course in the DigiTeL Pro project? Then I have to talk about our university, the KU Leuven. Within our university, we have the KU Leuven Learning Lab, and this department takes care of professionalization of teachers within our organization. And it's good team, which works very well. So we have some experience in professionalization of teachers. And besides that, there is the ITEC research group, which is part of IMEC. I don't know if you know it, but in the ITEC research group has a smart education program, and that is building future-oriented solutions to teach and train smarter. And we are working since 2017 with many companies and partners in education. And we are always doing some in-depth research, and then we see what we learned out of research, how can we put it in the classroom? How can we bring it in the classroom? And as a result of one of the iconic research programs, we developed our hybrid virtual classroom, of which you can see a picture here. It was awarded by UNIS in 2020. And we will run you through, as a participant, if you participate our course, we will run you through our findings in and research. We are very aware of the fact that not every institution is able to build a virtual class, of course not. And also for KU Leuven, it's not affordable at this moment to have a lot of spaces, as you can see on this screen. But we are convinced that our findings out of our research can be applied and adapted in other hybrid synchronous learning situations. And so the most important thing are the pedagogical findings of our research. And that is where we want to take you. Of course, we're going to talk about technology, but we are always looking for which technology can make our pedagogical need. And we compare different technologies, and we always try to come to the needs we have on a pedagogical way. So the technology is there to help us. The technology is not there at the first place, let's say. We were working hybrid synchronous and working on this research even before COVID, and that was because of the organization of our university. We have within Flanders a lot of campuses which are on distances which are just too far to go to all classrooms. And so we were a multi-campus university even before COVID-19, and that's where we started our research. And when we started the research to have the best hybrid synchronous learning, we had these 3 research objectives. Teachers want to interact, feel the engagement of the learners. The learners do not want to feel a difference between being in the classroom or remote. And technology must be under control, and it must be a simple process. That's what we tried. And that's where we came with our classroom. I'll talk you through our classroom. As I told you, the pedagogical part is the most important thing. So first thing of which we thought was very important is you can see all students, as you can see on this picture. Remote students can be seen life-sized in the classroom, and the screens make just an extra row in the classroom. There are several options of where do you put the screens? Where can you see the remote students? In our course, we are going to talk about that, and we are going to apply it in different lesson situations. The student who is on a distance, in our system, that student can choose what he sees. He is his own director. He can choose to see the teacher and not the presentation, or just the other way around, but he is the director of his own lesson. And that's something what we see, it's very important to be engaged, to have a choice, what are you seeing and what are you looking at? Again, we will see, is that important in all lessons? How can we reach it? Maybe we do not reach it. But in our concept, it is there. We can work with the room operator, that it's like a teacher assistant. Also, that is something in discussion, and we will share some research on it and think about the needs. Is there a teacher assistant needed in every lesson, or can the teacher manage it by himself? And then maybe the most important thing, I already talked about it, but engagement of our students. We work with quizzes and polls, which can be implemented quite easy. How necessary is that? Which system works in what way, and how can we work with that? I hope it works better than the system I had at the start. So that is what we were doing in our hybrid virtual class already before COVID, and then COVID came, and then our hybrid virtual class looked like this, empty with just a teacher and nobody else. But for now, we are luckily having students again. I hope we will keep them through the winter in our classrooms, but we'll see how it's evaluating with the virus. But we are working hybrid again, and we have most students on the campus now. And then for some practical information, I come back to this slide. I already showed it to you. So we have the 6 modules. We think that every student of every participant can choose, each module can be followed separately. So you can choose to follow just one module of as many as you want. The 6 modules will be on fixed dates. We will start with the first half March and end with the last by the half June. That's our time. We want to work in the fixed dates. We will share it with you on the website. But if you have more questions on this practical thing or on what we will talk about, you are very welcome in the breakouts after this plenary session. That is where it's for, I guess, then you can ask all your questions, which are very specific on this. I would like to say goodbye, but before I say goodbye, I do not let you go from now until March. If you want, if you are interested in this course, or if you want to follow this course, we have a LinkedIn group, and we will share some information on that. The link to the LinkedIn group is in this presentation, and the presentation will be shared with you after this meeting. So you can come in the group and just follow. Even if you do not want to follow the course, maybe it's interesting to be part of the group on LinkedIn, so we can share our findings and our experiences. Thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if there are any questions by now. I'll stop share, then I can see you again.
Thanks, Marieke. Thanks for the introduction of the course of Synchronous Hybrid Education. I think it's already quite attractive, presented very attractive to join this course. And I also want to emphasize that the online part is not out of convenience or because there is a pandemic. It's also, or very much so, about enhancing the education, improving the quality of the education, and I guess really interesting for the group present today. And like you said, we will keep all engaged until the start of the courses next year. And so please take the invitations of signing up for these groups, like the LinkedIn group. Anyone a question? No, I see no hands. Otherwise, you can use the breakout session to talk directly with Marieke. Thanks so much, Marieke. Then let's go to the blended education presentation of the blended education course. And I guess that will be Martijn Ouwehand from TU Delft.
Thanks for your for giving us the mic. I will immediately give over the mic to Naomi, who will guide us through the presentation and will always also be the guide of the course.
All right, sorry, I had to unmute myself first there, and then I can bring it back into the main screen here. Sorry about that. All right, thanks for being with us here today. And like Martijn pointed out, he will be here. We also have Viva and Franca, who are part of our project here. at TU Delft, and we're going to be focusing on the blending your education. Today's agenda, we will have a little icebreaker. We will talk a little bit about COVID education, blended learning, and the definitions in there. We'll talk about the advantages of blended learning, and we'll describe what the blended learning wave really is. And we'll talk about the course, blending your education. Before I get to the icebreaker, so we don't jump the gun here, I'm going to describe the steps and then ask you to make a reaction just so we can get an idea kind of as a poll. So please hold back until I tell you on this one. All right, ready? We wanted to see how many years of experience you have in teaching. So if you have under 2 years of experience teaching, if you could give a thumbs up as your reaction, just so we can see that. All right, and then under 5 for a smiley face, and then under 10, a heart. And if you have been teaching over 10 years, we were curious to see if you could give us one of those little ta-da, the one that has the cone with the shooting spray out. Yeah, just to give you an idea. All right, nice to see. And I like to ask this question because, and this is obviously my go-to food options. We realized it was a little bit harder to do some poll here, so we just wanted to do a quick one. I'd usually go for either stir fry with rice. A sandwich is really popular here in the Netherlands, but also my go-to is always a taco. So when you go to campus, what is one of the one foods from this list that you might be going for? If you could give the thumbs up, if you would do stir fry, smiley face for sandwich, and tacos, get a heart, and smile, or yeah, let's do the laughing face is nothing on that list. Thanks. All right. If you can tell by the presentation, we wanted to give you a little bit of experience of blended, because obviously we can't be in person for this part, but we wanted to show you kind of some of the presentation as what we will be giving you, but later on you're going to be doing part of an activity. And so we'll see what this looks like here. All right, let's keep going. So during COVID times, I'm sure many of you instructors may have already realized this, that it can be frustrating both as the instructor, or it can actually be frustrating as the student. We did start doing some research, and we have an article that we're writing as well, more related to some of the things that we've noticed within COVID times, particularly for isolated students. So we will be sharing out that article inside this course, and we also will be sharing it out if you're following it and you wanted more information about that as well. Blended courses, they kind of give you a nice blend. And we also noticed that they, in the research, they actually performed better than just the online courses, because the students were really excited to finally get to see each other again. And we did find that blended courses still have been going on in different parts of the world, depending on different regulations. So we did find some research on that during these COVID times. So what is blended learning? What you'll see is the traditional classroom, we usually meet in person. There's usually one person speaking, or they may do group work. And then we come back and listen, or we turn in assignments by ourselves and we turn it into that one instructor. In blended learning, you still have some parts of this, but you also have mixtures of maybe the instructor talking online, kind of like I am right now, presenting to someone. There might be some group work that you do with people in online spaces. And there may be places where you just do your own self-paced version in your own time at home. And that mixture or blending depends on what your needs are for the activity and what the students need as far as social learning. Inside this, for the definitions, we have blended learning, and that is referring mainly to learning as a result of a deliberate integrated combination of online and face-to-face learning activities. Blended teaching is the teaching side of this. So it's actually making the active choice between designing and facilitating the blended learning activities. And blended education is the higher level of this. This is the formal context in which the blended teaching and learning take place, determined by policies and conditions which regard to the organization and support blended teaching and learning. All right, so the advantages of blending. You get the nice mixture of online and also the face-to-face. What we often miss and students miss and talk about is actually those coffee moments, the moments before and after class. Maybe they talk to peers and ask questions during those moments of face-to-face. So the online gives you kind of flexibility in that space. They're more activating in general. They're often more flexible. It may require that you do not need as many rooms on campus then. They're also, you get more feedback from peers and the instructor. The instructor themselves get more feedback from the students. They're more effective and they're efficient. So the blended learning wave basically is where you do something first before you meet in person, and then you go back and do something else online before you again meet back in person. So it should have a nice mixture between what you're doing before you meet people to have a deeper conversation, and you can get more feedback from others who have also read or watched whatever you were doing before you continue on an essay, for example, and then you can come back and finalize a project perhaps. So within the blended learning wave, you have a lot of activities that you can choose from. And here's just a generalized list. There's plenty more of activities that could be created either online or face-to-face. But we wanted to give you a little bit of list because later on, you're going to be doing the activity with these items. Inside of the course, our first module is getting started. The second module is focused on, is your course really ready to be blended? Perhaps what do you need to know before you start blending your course? The third module is planning your course design. The fourth is preparing and teaching your course. The fifth is blending or building your blended course. The sixth is teaching your blended course. And of course, once you're done, you also need to evaluate and be ready to make improvements for the next time you run your course. As far as the assignments, these are the main assignments. There will be some other activities and optional things that you can do inside the course as well. But you start off by creating a personal plan of what you need from the course. So just like the previous course that Marika was talking about, this course you can choose modules. So if you only needed one, you can just do that one. But if you want, you can do all of them and finish the course completely. In the second module, you'll do a course scan, trying to decide what your course actually has, what you might need. And after that, you'll build a storyboard and really create the plan. Sorry, that's my dog. Oh, man. Sorry. Oh, Martijn, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, no problem. So after the storyboard, we'll look at the teaching checklist. Followed by creating an assignment rubric focused on assignments. After that, we'll look at the communication plan, what we need to do to get ready for the course and how do you involve students. And of course, the course evaluation and the course improvement plan based on your evaluation will be part of the assignments. So all in all, you'll go through a full cycle of designing and developing a course based on your own needs and your own goals.
All right, I'm going to switch on the slide. Yep, I'm going to switch on the slide and I may move upstairs just to get out of there. So I'm obviously the instructor of the course. I have 2 masters, one in information and learning technologies with the emphasis of designing online learning. And I also have one in Spanish. So if you do have any Spanish speakers, you're welcome as well. And I work here at TU Delft as a learning developer and also coordinate the continuing professional development. So we're going to move on to the learning activity, but I want to explain this a little bit first. Martijn, if you want, you can add the link into the chat so they can see it. What you'll see is the definitions that I already talked about are on the left, so you can easily access those. The description of how to participate is listed here as well. Then you have 3 focus areas, and you also have the slide that had the activities on to the right, and I'll show you that in 1 second. But first, when you're here, you'll be able to grab a Post-it and move it into this section. And you can do that according to the colors. So the red column is, or red or pink column is, what are the benefits you anticipate for blended learning if you're using it? And what are the challenges that you see for perhaps teaching within blended learning? And then what types of learning activities from this slide interest you most? And again, we're going to move over to see the next slide. And these are the learning activities that we talked about, the online and face-to-face. So I'm going to unshare that part. And this was a presentation in Miro board. So the link that he shared is where you can actually join and participate. We did this so you can see what it's like to be in a tool and already participating in it. But we also are going to give you the opportunity to not have to use Miro board if you don't want to. So if you want to, for right now, the first thing that we're going to do is in the chat, if you want to, you can add what are the benefits that you anticipate for using blended learning or for teaching in that matter. So if you can add to the chat, and then we will add these comments here, or you can again go into this space on your own. If you wanted to try out the Miro board to be here, all you do is, like I said, you can just go ahead and grab one of the sticky notes, or once you're here, you can just click on the text and you can just start typing, and then you can resize it to fit. Or you can type directly onto the post-it. So it really depends on what you want to do on the text. Either way works, it still happens. So feel free to add to this space or add to the chat. What are the benefits that you anticipate for blended, for when you do blended teaching?
So take some time, try to open the Miro board and add your contributions. Once you open the link for the first time, it might be that you end up somewhere else in the board. And it might require you to zoom out a little bit to find the actual assignment. So if you have any questions, let us know. The chat is open, and or just unmute and ask.
So does anyone see any benefits to blended teaching? I don't see any comments yet. If it's too difficult to, because maybe you haven't done blended teaching, what are the challenges that you see for blended teaching? And again, you can use the chat, you can use your microphone. People struggling with technology, thank you.
It appears I'm looking at the link to check whether that worked.
I think we actually have two links. One of them was for comments and the other one is the editing.
Try it again.
There we go. Now we suddenly see people.
Yes.
Yay. So I'm going to start adding some of this. There we go. So make students do the work. That actually sounds like it could be a benefit. Let's steal one of these Post-its over here. And so what you see, this is actually an example of the synchronous learning, where we're actually doing stuff in the moment and we get to create something together. There we go. It wasn't taking my paste. There we go. All right. Looks pretty active. Now, just to let you know, on a Miro board like this, you can also turn off the options so you can't see everyone flying around. But for now, we're going to leave it just so you can see the participation and what it looks like. In part of this blended learning, what's nice is for students, even in their online, they can see each other doing stuff and that they're not alone in these types of moments, especially with COVID. All right. And it looks like we actually need more Post-it notes. That's awesome. I'm going to just add a few more here. And if you notice, we ran out of what's called thorns, and that was the one that was the concern. All right. That's the one that we had. So it looks like we had a little bit more concerns initially. All right. And one thing that you can see is as you give other people the ability to edit, you may have had a structure and it may disappear, and that's okay. Because in the end, you can usually come back, but I can already see some Post-it notes all over the place. And this is just how we interact. If we were in person, these would be Post-it notes probably on a big poster, right? And sometimes they fall off. It's the same thing in online. We have these moments, and I'm going to make a few more green ones over here for people. All right, grab a couple more green ones. But I wanted you to at least experience what it's like to see some synchronous pieces. And you can also see what it's like to not necessarily know what your audience might do or how they might react. So again, with the blended, you get to see, like, we have a lecture piece and then the component, which is the synchronous. So I hope you've enjoyed this part of it. We do have one other part that we were going to ask, and we will do that later on in the breakout room. I think it might be a good opportunity to at least share out the link to the registration for this one as well. And I already shared the link to the main part of this description, but we can share that out. But does anyone have any questions? I'm going to zoom in here too. Looks like people are also having fun with this too. And I can see someone is deleting, so please don't delete. All right. And I'm just going to point this out. You do see that, like, when you give out instructions, it doesn't mean that people exactly follow, right? So again, we were trying to do what the benefits were in pink, and the blue is in the challenges, and the green is the actual activities that you are more interested in. All right.
So we hope this gives you a taste of what's coming in the course. Tooling wise, hopefully we'll be able to structure it a little bit differently. If there's no other questions, then maybe we should give the mic back to George.
Yeah, I think the only thing we forgot to mention is we do plan to have synchronous sessions once a week or once every 2 weeks, I believe. And we do have a little bit of a proposed schedule for that, but we will share that out later on. But we do plan to have some time together, at least an hour. Yep, passing it back to you, George.
Thanks so much, Naomi and Martijn. This is really, really nice and good to see how engaged everybody is in this. I guess also the results now on the mirror board are also valuable input for the development of the sessions that you are preparing. So it looks really nice. And for those interested, please join the breakout sessions later on. Thanks so much. I don't see further questions. People are very occupied with the mirror board, and I think you have to stop the sharing. In the meantime, people keep having access to this, I guess, and I can work on that still after the session. Thanks so much. Let us then go to Albert Sangra from the WOC in Catalonia, who is going to present the course on online education, which is prepared in collaboration between the WOC, the Open University of the Netherlands, and Untitled in Italy. So, Albert, please, the floor is yours. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you so much, George. Good afternoon to everyone. So as Mariki has apologized for her English, I should do that also, because even my language is even farther away from English than hers. So let's start on that. We are going to share the presentation. Could you look at this?
Yes, worked perfect.
Okay, perfect. So the agenda for the presentation is first to talk a little bit about online and distance education today, to introduce you the online teaching and learning course that the DigiTeL Pro project is going to provide you. And at the end, if there are some questions, or if there are not, we will go to the breakout sessions or rooms to discuss deeper on this course. Okay, so first, I did it a bit in the opposite as Mark at the beginning did, that I think is a very good presentation too. But I will start with some reflections about online and distance education today. And the first is that distance education particularly, and in a more modern times, online education has been always supporting the society in critical times. As distance education was a big issue when in the 80s, the stenography, the stenotype arrived in the UK, and people started to use distance education in order to be taught about the use of this machine. Or for instance, when in the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, they decided to use multimedia materials in order to provide better training on the forensic education, or because they had a loss of bodies in order to do all the practical training there. Or even in Canada, in Vancouver, when the University of British Columbia decided to go online at the early in the morning in order to avoid any traffic jam in the city. Usually, the reason for using distance education or online education has never been education. Has never been it. It's always been to solve other problems that happen in a particular moment, but always distance education and now online education have been there in order to help to solve these problems. And the pandemic has been one of these situations, or one of these critical times in which the society has needed online education in order to overcome a critical situation. On the other hand, time ago, learning is changing. It's changing in various ways. We see that we are practicing learning in a different way, that we are not just consumers of learning, but we are also producing the content that others will learn. And this makes us to think that the pillars of the future of learning, which Redeker and other authors stress on that, will be, and they are currently, flexibility, personalization, interaction, collaboration, and we can add also the concept of informalization too. One can say that all this can be done face-to-face, of course, and you can do it if you want to, but you will have some constraints to get it. It can be done online, of course, too, but it will depend the kind of online education and the online model you are providing. But you always have to keep in mind that no matter the kind of model you are providing to your students, you should take into consideration to provide these elements in order to give them a good opportunity for learning. So from this previous time, there were 4 catalysts that were being the reasons for the metamorphosis of learning in these times. First, the connected networks that enable connected learning. Second, the increase of the empowerment of learners. They every time decide what to learn, how to learn it, where to learn it, and when to learn. The third is the overcoming of time and space barriers. And this makes us to create more opportunities for learning. And finally, also the acceptance of the existence of an unconscious, informal, invisible, and silent learning. In the pandemic times, the discontinuity or intermittence generated by this situation of the COVID-19 has made these changes sped up. So this is important to take into consideration. It's not just a result of the pandemic, it's just an acceleration of some of the changes that were happening before the pandemic too. So the pandemic has provided us some lessons, and I think that they are still provisory, especially because unfortunately, I don't think this has finished. And this has to be very important for us to take into consideration, because first of all, and our first lesson is that maybe in different forms, this could happen again. And we have to avoid the interruption of education. Mark at the beginning has shown you a map in which we can identify that 9 of 10 students had interrupted education in this period of pandemic. So it's true that then digital growth has resulted in the only feasible situation in that case. So this is because it's so important online too. In this period, we did our best, but some things can be done much better. We try to do something critical, of course, and I think that we have to thank you all people that did it, but we also have to reflect that things can be done much better. We also know that the digital divide is still a great barrier. We know that, and we also know that maybe it's not a matter of teachers and universities in themselves, but a matter of authorities and governments, because if they want, they probably could avoid and overcome this barrier. We also know, and this is very important, that remote teaching was not online education. And the article from Hodge and other authors demonstrated this. And finally, we also know that hybridization of learning is already there. And it's something that should be taken into consideration. Talking again about online education, we can understand that when I have said that remote teaching was not online education, even if some people said that, we have to accept that online education is a fuzzy concept. It is still a fuzzy concept. Its definition depends very much on everyone's use. This is what I do is online education. It is not what you do. And this is a usual situation. Sometimes traditional distance education using new technologies is online education. Sometimes we call it e-learning with a strong technology-based approach. Sometimes it implies synchronous and asynchronous solutions, or maybe not. It can be understood as a simple replica of classroom lectures, usually based on video lectures, or as a PDF delivery model, or as an accessible repository of documents. All this leads to considerable confusion for those people who are really interested in it for the first time. And this has been the situation we've lived during this period of pandemic. Quality online education should be planned, should be organized, should be demanding, should be responsible. In one single word, it should be strategic. So institutions have to take into consideration why they want to move to online and how they will do that. A quality online education will allow flexibility, personalization, interaction, and collaboration. Yes, the pillars of future of learning I have mentioned at the beginning. If we do that, these quality online education models will become sustainable, accessible, and innovative. It won't be exactly the same we do in a classroom, translated literally to an online environment. We will adapt this environment and our teaching in order to provide the best learning to our students, taking into consideration all these items. We should mobilize learning when it is at a distance or online. So we should stress the student activity with activity-based or task-based, increasing participation and engagement of the students, and providing them a continuous assessment model in order to make them aware about the progress of their learning. Teachers has to be there to accompany them, doing or giving them support, guidance, and interaction. Online is not synonym of doing things by your own. It's not only self-learning. Interaction is very, very important. Interaction with teachers and interaction with other peers. Having a good set of learning resources that you can access easily. To have this access to this content in multiple formats based on a diversified technology. And finally, creating a network community of peers in which you could create collaboration issues, teamwork, knowledge building, and providing a sense of group, a sense of belonging to a group. Sometimes people say online is too cold, we cannot interact, we don't feel a belonging somewhere. This is probably because we did not do it well. Because all these things can be done if you develop a good quality online mode. And why online? Because our colleagues or my colleagues showed you, and they did it very well, I have to say that why to do synchronous hybrid or why to do blended. There are a lot of benefits for that. There are benefits also for doing it online. Why online? First, because your students want it. It could be. It's not a matter of deciding which is the best model from the perspective of the teachers of the institution. It's depending on the perception of the students. If you have captive students attending to your institution, they will be happy if you provide a 10, 20, 30% of more flexibility. If you have a student that cannot attend to a physical institution, they don't want a 30, 40, 50%. They want a 100% flexibility. And this is another reason, because you want to provide this 100% flexibility. Or because something doesn't let the students go physically to the classrooms. Maybe because they live very far away, or maybe because there is a pandemic, I don't know. Also because you may or want to have students from all over the world, no matter their time slots. So this can give you more flexibility, looking for developing an asynchronous model that could be fully online. And finally, also because it can be well designed and provide the same learning results as any other modality. So these are more or less the reasons in some topics that usually people think about online, and they are not absolutely true. So it is important to get deeper in online education in order to understand that online education is not only about MOOCs, it's not only about self-learning, it's about other very qualitative elements of learning. The second part of my presentation is about our online teaching and learning course that it's belonging to the CPD DigiTeL Pro program. But I think as George Uvax has said, it's a very good initiative in order to provide teachers at the universities all over Europe with other elements for improving the way they are teaching, no matter the model they are using. This course is developed by 3 universities in the partnership. The Open Universiteit of the Netherlands, the Università Telematica Internazionale Uninettuno from Italy, and the Open University of Catalonia, Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, from Barcelona, Spain, in which the research group EduLab are the group of researchers who are participating in this endeavor. These are some of the course details. We will start in March 2022. There is no fee. There will be 4 weeks in total. 6 modules. I will tell you what modules are in a minute. The effort are 30 hours in total in a ratio of 3-5 hours per module. There are no enrollment requirements, neither prior knowledge requirements. There is no limit of number of participants at this stage. As instructors initially, they will be Roland Klemp from the Netherlands, Alessandro Caforio from Italy, and Monse Guiter, Juliana Raffagelli, and myself from UOC. The main objectives of this course are design, develop, and implement a course to enhance online and distance teaching and learning in the European universities. And we would like to help to understand the principles and the logics of the different elements that are interacting in an educational online environment. And also to suggest ways to orchestrate classroom when moving to online, as well as how to assess and evaluate the student body. And finally, to facilitate a good background and a number of tips to manage online teaching and learning. It's an initial course, of course, because in 30 hours, we cannot do miracles, but it could be a very good course in order to start and identify how we can manage differently our initial ideas about what online education can provide. There will be 6 modules, and these modules are entitled Definition of Online Education with some pedagogical approaches. The second one is the role of the teacher in online education, because she or he has a crucial role in online education. Learning design. Design is basic, is central in order to have a good course. Orchestrating the classroom will be the 4th module. The 5th one will be assessing and evaluating. And finally, there will be a final module related to understanding innovation and key emerging technologies in order to have a kind of prospection of how online education could be evolving in the very next times. Assessment will be continuous, and there will be a combination of peer and teacher assessment. So there will be an increased participation of the peers in the assessment, because we consider that when one has to assess the content of something, is trying to go deeper in this content particularly. So it's a way in order to improve the process of learning too. Finally, after completing the course, you will receive a certificate of attendance shared by the 3 universities I have mentioned before and by the project. In order to finish, the most important thing here is that when we are talking about online education, we should take into consideration, do not replicate in-presence classroom teaching. It's not the same. And the copy, as you can see in that pictures, is always worse than the original. So as we are in a different context as an online environment is, we should try different combination of strategies. To different contexts, different combination of strategies. Our question is, how much have we learned from the pandemic situation? And we really hope we are not applying the pendulum law in which we are coming back at the very beginning as we were at the beginning of the pandemic. We hope that we have learned a lot during this pandemic because of our success and because of our fails too. So it's time to improve the way we are managing online education too. These are the contact information you can use for any question if you have, even if in the breakout room we will talk about it. And I will also say, and I will try to put it in the chat in a minute, an address in which there will be a form. Then please fill in the form just with your name and your email address, and we will provide you information about the moment in which you can register to this course if you are interested. So thank you very much for your attention. these are the partnership of the whole project, as George has situated at the very beginning of the session. And I will be more than glad to answer any questions you can have. Thank you. Thanks,
thanks, Albert. Thanks all course leaders for your introduction of the courses that we'll now further be able to discuss in the breakout sessions. So let's not take further questions here, but bring them to the breakout sessions, which are going to be opened now. So I'm going to ask Bo, yes, if we can open the selection of breakout sessions, and then for you, just click the session that you would like to go to, and then for the next half hour, you will have the opportunity to talk with your course leader, and we will come back then plenary for the closing at 4 o'clock. So the breakout sessions will appear on the screen soon. If I'm right, Abo, they will appear on the screen for everybody.
I made 3 breakout rooms, create rooms, and I renamed them, but I cannot manually let you choose one.
So last time people could manually choose. What's
I'm renaming them now. I cannot open the rooms.
I see technology stays a challenge. Also here.
George, can you see the breakout rooms when you click on them?
Actually, I don't have the button breakout rooms.
In the meantime, if is there any question about the last presentation, I will be more than glad to take advantage of this time to answer you.
Sure. Yeah. Is it otherwise possible, Bo, that when people indicate, like the polls TU Delft did, like I would like to go to hybrid thumbs up and blended waves, that you allocate them to the room?
I cannot open the rooms. That's the problem. They are there, but I cannot open them. I can maybe automatically sign them, but then I'm not sure if everyone is assigned to a room automatically.
So for the blended one, I'll at least do our stuff. The mural board, we actually have one frame that is ours, so you can join that, although we won't be talking in this space, but you can certainly join it. It's the last frame that we have, and it is called the Expectations. What do you expect from this course? So you can certainly add there, and we've modified this so the rest of this stuff is locked, so you can't move things anymore. So we brought everything back. So if you want, you can hang out in that spot and join there for now.
Yeah, so I really hope that we can get these breakout sessions operational, because last time we were able to do so in Zoom.
Okay, I will open them, but you will be signed automatically, but you can come back to this room and choose another room if possible. So please be aware that you will be assigned to a different room than your preference, but you can choose to come back and choose a different room.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah.
So if you're not happy to your assigned room, you can click on go to back to the main room, and then we will assign you.
Yes. Okay, they are open now. I think you all received a message in Zoom, and you can click on it and go to the room.
Room 1 is where Marike was.
So is the number of the room is then 1 is Marike, 2 is Delft, and 3 is online by Albert, I guess.
I cannot change the names. Not sure.
No, okay, but yeah, I think the number is clear to everybody. At least the the course leader should be in in their own room. So Albert, you should choose room 3. Marike 1, and Delft should choose room 2.
Yeah, Martijn is in room 2. I will stop here the recording for a second.